Well, hey, welcome to Momentum Youth Online. Tonight we've got a stellar evening planned for you. We're talking about creation and science. But before that, we've got an awesome game that you're going to love called Would You Rather Extreme Edition. Let's jump in. All right, man, I'm so excited for this game, and I'm so excited. Today we have another voice happening behind the camera. Tonight I'm welcoming our cameraman who's been so amazing. All these weeks he's been recording, and we've had some help from other people, but Jacob has just done a great job. So from behind the camera today, let's just welcome Jacob. Jacob, say hello.
Hey, guys.
And Jacob's going to help me with this game called Would You Rather Extreme Edition. And the first thing that you guys have to do is you just have to determine what would you rather do. Okay, I'm going to give you one option and then another option. You know how it goes. And the first option is this: would you rather have no elbows or no knees? No elbows or no knees? Let us know in the comments. All right, no elbows and no knees. Jacob, what do you think about this? What would you prefer?
I mean, life without knees would be difficult to pick things up, but I feel like if you really stretched your hips out a lot, you could kind of bend over for stuff. I feel like elbows are so much... I don't know. I feel like I would definitely prefer no knees.
I think I would prefer no elbows. I mean, you can get by. You can pick things up. You can still bend. You can still run. Try running with no knees. Have you ever tried to run with no knees?
I can't put my glasses on with no elbows, though. And they'd be 2 feet away from your computer.
You just lay them on the bed and then just like nuzzle in. Okay, the next one is this. Okay, would you rather have fingers that can shoot spaghetti, or would you rather have feet that can turn into skates? Let us know. All right, I don't know about this one, Jacob. Having fingers that shoot spaghetti or having feet that can turn into skates? What do you think?
I think I'd definitely prefer the spaghetti. I think it's just a super convenient way to eat. I mean, does it include like pasta sauce or is it just dry spaghetti?
I don't know. I think I would do turn feet into skates because then that would actually make travel so much easier, especially if you live in Ottawa. Can you imagine just like you run down to the canal and you just go? But spaghetti would be kind of fun to play pranks on people for sure. All right, here's the next one. All right, I know what you're going to choose, Jacob. It's, would you rather live in a world without ice cream or would you rather live in a world without bacon? All right, let's see what you got. All right, live in a world without ice cream or live in a world without bacon? Jacob, I think this is a no-brainer. What do you think?
I'd probably live in a world without no bacon.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought that's what you would want.
No, I mean, I don't know. Ice cream's so enjoyable.
Yeah, I could actually live in a world without bacon for sure.
Does that include like no like pork and pea meal bacon, or is it just like crispy bacon we're getting rid of?
I hate crispy bacon. Okay, let us know in the comments. Do you like your bacon crispy or kind of like not crispy? All right, here's the next one. Would you rather get paid $1 million to have the word idiot tattooed on your forehead? Or would you rather be a movie star that makes $0 at all? Let us know in the comments. All right, Jake, what do you think? Get paid $1 million to have idiot on your forehead, or to be a movie star that makes zero money at all?
It's very interesting. I don't know. It's difficult. I mean, with the way I'm growing my hair out, you could probably cover it up at a certain point for the tattoo.
You could probably cover it up, or it doesn't say how small idiot can be tattooed.
Yeah, it could be a small little like eyebrow extension tattoo.
I don't know. I think that being a movie star that makes no money at all, probably because I feel like there's other avenues that, if you're a movie star, you might get other revenues, by maybe doing ads or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah,
maybe that's stretching it.
Do you make $0 off anything you do, or is it just you don't make money from being a movie star?
Yeah, I don't know. There's plenty of movie stars that actually probably don't make that much money. My friend was in a movie one time.
I think I'll take the idiot tattoo.
Would you?
Yeah.
I don't think I could have that. Okay, would you rather go to the moon or take an all expenses paid vacation anywhere on Earth? Go to the moon or take an all expenses paid vacation anywhere on Earth. I'd like to know what you guys think. Let us know. All right, Jake.
What's there to do on the moon?
I don't know, but you could be a select few people that have been to the moon. Why haven't we gone back to the moon? I'm just saying.
It's because there's nothing to really do up there.
I don't know. Some people think it's a conspiracy.
Yeah,
I'm not a conspiracy theorist.
I'd go on vacation personally. I don't think there's a lot to do on the moon. I can jump a little higher, but I could also go skydiving in like Hawaii or something.
That's true. Rachel and I were supposed to go skydiving in Hawaii, but I got too scared. Okay, here we go. Here's the next one. Have a private jet but no cars, or have 10 cars of your choice. So a private jet but no cars, or 10 cars of your choice. Let us know in the comment box down below and on the side. Oh, I don't know about this one. I feel like if you have a private jet, that must mean you have a private pilot. And if you have a private pilot, I feel like you will have a chauffeur. Your chauffeur owns a car. Or am I stretching it?
I don't know. Jet fuel's pretty expensive.
That's true.
I feel like I definitely just go for a car lineup of anyone you need. You get a Jeep for off-roading, you get a Tesla for cruising. Just go through a whole nice 10-car lineup.
I think you're right.
It's more versatile.
I think you're right. And you could sell 9 of them and probably buy a private.
Yeah.
Okay, this one's kind of funny. Jacob, would you rather have no eyebrows or have one unibrow? That's a tough one. Let us know in the comments. The wheels are spinning. All right, we back. Jacob, no eyebrows or a giant unibrow?
Well, if I still have the idiot tattoo, I feel like the unibrow could either help cover it up, or you could get those. You can get fake eyebrows tattooed on. My grandma has that.
I too know someone that has that. Okay, moving on to the next. Would you rather? Would you rather have tarantulas that live in your house or have clowns for neighbors? Let us know. This is an easy one in chat. All right, we're back. We're still laughing at that eyebrows one, but would you rather have tarantulas that live in your house or clowns for neighbors?
I could fight a clown neighbor. I'm not dealing with tarantulas in my house.
Honestly, we went to Haiti as a church one time, and I kid you not, there was tarantulas that would crawl out of the ground. Like, we'd pour water in these little holes in these and the kids were like Owen Clouston, Noah Cochran, Nathan Cochran. They were just holding these things, and I'm like, you guys are insane.
Crazy kids.
But yeah, clowns for neighbors is a no-brainer. In fact, clowns for the most part, I mean, there are some scary clowns.
Yeah. Unless you get like a Pennywise killer clown, they're pretty fine.
Usually they're pretty fun.
Yeah.
A little annoying at times at birthday parties and stuff, but. Okay, here's the next one. Would you rather have spider legs from the waist down or have lobster claws from the elbows down? Let us know in the chat. Let us know in the chat. Okay. All right, Jacob, this is the last one. We got. Would you rather have spider legs from the waist down or lobster claws from the elbows down?
It's difficult. I think it kind of goes back to the elbows knees thing. Like, you could do a lot with spider legs. Like, you could climb walls and stuff, I guess, but you'd also kind of look freaky. And I feel like lobster claws could be more of an attraction and less scary. You could probably make money off having lobster claws.
It's kind of like when you put socks on your hands, right? And you just
Yeah,
kinda like,
yeah. You can still kind of pick stuff up.
honestly, I feel like the spider legs would just kind of, they creep me out a little bit. I'm more of a lobster claw kind of guy, although I do like eating lobster claws. So I'm not sure if that would be a temptation just to always want to just.
You could probably still wear a lot of your clothes too with lobster claws. Spider pants. I don't know how those would work. Like 8 little legs to put in.
You put 4 in each leg?
Yeah.
Okay, that's the end of Would You Rather. I hope you enjoyed that. Right, as you know, also, before we jump into that, let's just give Jacob a little round of applause in the comments. Thanks for doing that from behind the camera. It just makes it way more enjoyable. But we've been jumping into a series called Asking for a Friend, where we get to talk about some of our biggest questions regarding faith and Christianity. And tonight we are so excited. I'm stoked to have Doug Gillum joining us as we talk about creation and evolution and science. And the hope is to kind of give you a perspective that might be different than what you've ever considered. And so let's jump on over to there. Hey guys, welcome tonight. I'm so excited to have this chat in a moment. We are continuing on in our series called Asking for a Friend. And again, the premise of Asking for a Friend is the idea that sometimes we have questions about our faith and life and Christian walk that we would like to ask, but maybe we're a little fearful or to ask. And so we say we're asking for a friend. And also, it also has a double meaning in the sense that we're asking that in hopes that these questions and these answers might help you talk to your friend if they're asking. And so tonight we are joined by a leader that you know and a good friend of mine. His name is Doug Gillum. And Doug, I'm going to get you real quick just to introduce us. Who are you? Where do you come from? And just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Like you said, I'm Doug Gillum. I've been at Milton Bible Church for 8 years now. Have wife Heather, 2 kids, Riley and Tessa, both in the youth group, and I've been a volunteer with the youth for the past several years. I work at the Weather Network. I'm a meteorologist, and prior to that, I taught meteorology at Mississippi State University, and I was the director of distance learning for the department. And going back even further, I was born in Vineland, Ontario, in the Niagara region. So
wow, so you've been all over.
Yes.
I love how you did distance learning before it was cool.
Yes, I was the director of distance learning before it became the only way to learn.
Yeah, so now you were like an education hipster. They would say it was cool before you were cool.
So.
Now, listen, Doug, we just played a game a few moments ago online called Would You Rather, and I just thought, just as an icebreaker for you and I want to ask you some of these Would You Rather questions, okay? And some of them are funny, some of them are okay. So, Doug, the question is: would you rather have no elbows or no knees?
I guess no elbows because I'm a runner, and I'm having trouble imagining being able to be a distance runner without my knees.
Yeah, you would look quite funny. Okay.
Well, I do anyways. But.
Yeah. Okay, Doug, would you... Oh, man, these are funny. Would you rather have fingers that shoot spaghetti or have feet that turn into skates?
Well, this is spaghetti gluten-free. I mean, I'm allergic to spaghetti. So... yeah, I'd rather my feet turned into skates.
Yeah. On the spaghetti one, Jacob, as we were chatting, he said, is it like cooked spaghetti or raw spaghetti? And I'm like, that makes a big difference.
It is important.
Okay, this is kind of sciencey. Would you rather go to the moon, right? Or would you rather take an all expenses paid vacation anywhere on Earth?
Oh, definitely anywhere on Earth. I have no intention of leaving the Earth before Jesus comes.
That's a good.
Or he calls me home.
Elon Musk, he says that he's going to send people to Mars, and so that'll be interesting. Okay, here's a funny one. Would you rather have spider legs from the waist down, or would you rather have lobster claws from the elbows down?
Spider legs.
I know,
I have trouble picturing the lobster.
I thought, you know what? I think lobster claws are the most like what I'm used to. It's kind of like wearing socks on your hands. And so anyway, I hope that gives you a good idea as to who Doug is. I feel like I know you so much more now. But Doug, thank you for being here tonight.
My pleasure.
And I'm hoping that this is not the last time we get to do this. Hopefully in the next couple of weeks we'll do another one. But tonight we're talking about science and the Bible. And you mentioned you kind of have been in a professor and colleges and those types of things. Science and the Bible for you has kind of been important in your life, and you've had 1 foot in each world, or 2 feet in each world actually. Tell us a little bit about your journey and your faith journey, and then how did you reconcile some of that with your maybe some of the obstacles you had, and then some of the breakthroughs you had as well in regards to your faith in science?
Well, it's been a journey, and I think that's important to keep in mind. I was raised in the church. I, from a very young age, believed that the Bible was the Word of God and that it was truth. But as someone who was very interested in science from a very early age, I was told, and based on what I was being taught in school, there seemed to be a conflict between what I was hearing in church, what I was reading in the Bible, and what the world was telling me about science. Are we here by design? Did God create us? Are we here by chance? Are we the product of evolution? When I was in grade 7, I think it was, a speaker came and spoke to our Sunday school class, and he started off by saying, years from now, you're not going to remember any details of what I say today. But what I want you to take away from this, and this is what I want you to take away from this today, is that even if you don't remember any of the specifics of what we talk about, there are answers to the hard questions about many of these topics, but today especially about why we believe what we believe, especially in the realm of science. You don't have to remember all the details about science. And I just proved that is what I remember of his talk. And I remember he gave a lot of evidence for creation and for design. All of it, which I guess I've forgotten, but I do remember that there are answers. And when you are hit by hard questions, and when you go to university, as I did, and you're challenged, and people start saying, nobody with any intelligence believes in God. Nobody with any intelligence believes in the Bible or in creation. You could that there are people who have wrestled through these hard questions, and it's not just a blind faith. I believe in what I believe because of the scientific evidence. And, a lot of people, as they go, whether it's high school or university, if they go into the sciences, that's where a lot of people walk away from their faith. For me, the more I got into science, the more I saw God. And so science strengthened my faith, but it has been a continuous journey. In my undergrad, one of my majors, people are surprised to hear this because I'm a meteorologist, I'm a scientist, but I also majored in Bible in my undergrad.
That's uncommon, I'm sure.
It is.
Yeah.
And, I started researching, I was also in education, and I started researching what was taught in schools as proof of evolution. And I dove into the science, not what Christians were saying about it, but I dove into the research with my scientific background. I could start reading the research, and I realized I've started finding all the flaws and all the problems with the proofs of evolution.
Yeah, it's not as simple as what they once said. And in fact, what we're going to discover tonight is that actually to believe in evolution specifically actually takes a lot of faith.
Absolutely. I believe it takes more faith to be an atheist and to believe that the universe and the world and all the design that we see is the result of an explosion, that it just happened, that, nothing physical in the universe can explain its own existence. And yet we want to believe that the universe explains its own existence.
100%. I saw a photo recently that described it well. And then we'll jump into a definition of science. And they said, just picture like this church building that we're in right now. You guys have been here, you know the big room we're in, you see the stage. Picture this building. And suppose I told you that this actually was just a mess of materials in a pile in this parking lot. And someone just kind of stuck a dynamite in it and lit it and exploded. And it just perfectly landed over time and made its way to look what we know with swinging doors and electricity and lights and a HVAC heating system that just works. No one in their right mind would look at that and go, that seems reasonable. But similarly, obviously that's a very simple analogy. An analogy only goes so far. That's kind of what happens a lot of times when we talk about evolution and the Big Bang. It's just that it happened by accident. All this magnificence that we know. And so we're going to jump a little bit more into that a little bit later, but I'd like to start by asking you, how would you define science? We're talking about science, but when I think of science, I think of just about chemistry. I was going to say psychics. We're
going to have to talk about science.
Oh yeah. Chemistry, physics, biology, all those sorts of things. I took what was called earth science, which was basically if you couldn't do those other three, I took the weather. No,
hey now.
I'm just kidding. So I took all those. I took just earth science, but that's what I think of when I think science. And so, what is actually a definition of science, and what are the implications of what we know as science and the scientific method?
Well, originally science simply meant knowledge, but as we talk about science, and sometimes people talk as you take grade 9 or 10 science, what is it that you're studying? Well, it's really, when you're talking about science, you're talking about a method of knowing things. You talk about the scientific method, and in the scientific method, you start with a question, and then you develop a hypothesis. And
I remember that word from my little science fair project. You have the hypothesis, and they do all the little different steps. Okay, keep going.
And do you remember how to spell it? It's one of the harder words to
don't ask me that.
But there's this method. So you test your hypothesis, and you do experiments. And the idea with science is that things are testable and repeatable. If you mix two chemicals together in the same proportion under the same conditions, you get the same result, whether you do that in Milton or Mississippi or wherever you are, you get the same results. You don't have one result and go, I wonder if that'll ever happen again. And so science is simply knowledge, but it's a method of gaining understanding about the world around us through observation and through testing it, through experiments.
100%. And so it's basically evidence-based, right?
Exactly.
It's evidence-based. We need to, and there's boundaries and there's perimeters in regards to science that it has to look a certain way in some ways. For example, they will not include, it's not a part of science to involve anything outside of the natural or the supernatural. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, exactly. Science is evidence-based, and it is the key to all of our advances in technology, in medicine, etc. But like you said, it's committed to natural explanations. But that was so critical to the development of science. A lot of people don't realize that the scientific revolution, the explosion of scientific knowledge, was led by Christians.
Yeah.
Why? Because they believed there was order and design in the universe. They believed that when you did something, there would be a predictive result.
Which was good, because back then, if there was like a tornado, they would say, well, the gods are punishing us.
Yeah.
And so it was actually people of faith that said, actually, there's design to this. This is not just random angry gods, that there's order put into place by someone that's putting it into order, and with design and intentionality. When we say design, we mean intentionality, that someone's put thought into this. It's not just chaos and havoc. So yeah, that was a good thing, that actually science is a good thing, and was actually brought about by, you're saying, a lot of actually believers in the beginning.
Yeah, because the explanations for everything that happened were the gods.
Yeah.
And if I were to drop something, we could say it's always going to fall to the earth because of gravity. It's not because the gods are snatching it and throwing it down. At some point, it might just grab it and throw it up. There was order and law in the universe, and a belief in God is what caused science to say, hey, we can investigate how the world works, and there'll be consistency in that. And that's how the scientific method developed. And Christians were so huge in driving that.
Amazing. But this has implications. If the scientific method refuses to have supernatural involvement, so nothing, like, let's just say if you and I were scientists, one of us are, obviously it's you, but if we were doing a scientific procedure or experiment, there is no room, if we were not Christians, to explain why something's happening unless it was testable, repeatable, right? And so what implications does that have when we look at things like creation, when we look at, things that we study in school? There's no room to talk about potentially God having some input in here. So what type of implications does this kind of have? Does that make sense?
Well, on the one hand, it is important to exclude the supernatural, and that when things happen, we can't just say, well, I guess the gods were angry. So when we're talking about the things that we observe in the world, there are natural laws that cause that. But by creating a definition of science that excludes the supernatural, we need to be really careful to then say, oh, well, I guess we've just disproven God. God's outside of science. Well, on the one hand, that is true. God is outside of science, but he created the laws that we study within science. So the question that I would ask is, based on the scientific method and based on what we observe, what is more reasonable? Is it more reasonable to believe that everything we see in the world is the product of an accident?
Yeah.
Or is it the product of a designer?
Totally.
And that designer is outside of science, but observed evidence points back to God.
100%. And this is a huge question for teenagers especially, and everyone to ask, really, because if you believe things happen by an accident and just a random act, or intentional, intelligent design, has significant consequences or impacts on meaning of life, right? And so if everything happens by an accident, the meaning of life kind of gets sucked out, is really void in comparison to having someone that loved and intentionally made you. Any thoughts on that at all?
Well, if we are the product of time plus matter plus chance, there is no meaning in life except what you carve out of it. You can have moments of joy and happiness, but there is no meaning in life. You are an accident.
Yeah.
There was nothing intelligent behind. There's no purpose. You're just the product of an accident. There is no meaning. But if there is a God who designed and created you, then that gives you infinite purpose, value, and worth.
It changes everything.
It changes everything.
And I just want to, you at home, I just want to encourage you for a moment, just for you to remember that you are not an accident. And actually, Scripture tells us some of these things where it talks about you are God's masterpiece. You see these types of things. You're his handiwork, it says, that he knows the very number of hairs on your head. Now, if you come from a naturalist perspective, and when we say that, we mean like you believe everything just happened by time, chance, all those types of space, just over time. If you believe all this just kind of happened, if you just ended up down here because of a big bang millions of years ago, you would believe you're just a speck on this tiny planet that will live a short life and then die. But to know that we actually have this creator God that knows that we're this speck on this planet, but we're cared for and infinitely loved. Man, I almost get emotional actually talking about it, to be honest. It changes everything. And that's why I think as teenagers and as leaders, that should motivate us to share this message that we have called the gospel. And we'll jump back to the gospel at the end, but it changes everything. And that's the whole idea of, what did you say? You said time plus
matter plus chance.
Plus chance. That's it.
Yeah, that's all there is. And the question is, where did even the matter come from? I mean, there is such all theories of origin by nature cannot be subjected to the scientific method. The idea that the theories of origin cannot be tested and repeated. They're one-time events. So to say that creation's unscientific, well, because we can't repeat the experiment. Well, we can't repeat the experiment either in terms of the Big Bang and what exactly happened. We can't recreate that. But if we are just the product of an accident, then there is no God. There is no accountability. You become your own God.
Yeah.
And there's no basis for morality.
100%.
And and really, we look at all the big issues today. For race being a big one. I mean, we are created in the image of God. It doesn't matter. We all bear God's image, but under the naturalistic framework, if you remove God from it, then
we shouldn't be surprised that people are warring
Absolutely.
with one another, and we shouldn't be surprised that it's dog eat dog, or that one group would want to oppress another group. But the gospel actually, and the Bible, the Christian faith, speaks into all these spaces where the culture is hurting.
Yes.
And we say, actually, you matter, you have value, we have a unique purpose, because we have a unique position as the church, because we believe that actually we have inherent intrinsic value.
Yes.
And that changes everything. I want to touch on real quickly the time plus matter plus space. Did I get that right?
Time plus matter plus chance.
Chance
Chance being the key.
Chance being the key. And this is why we hired the professionals. But I've had conversations with you before where you talked about some of the national parks you've been in. And tell us a little bit about that. And you have this kind of scenario you walked me through once. I would love for you to just kind of walk through that.
Yeah, I've seen some amazing scenery as I've traveled the world, and especially the different national parks across the United States and Canada. And I used to lead field courses for educators across the country, and we'd see something and we'd ask, what caused this? Where did this come from? Explain how this happened. And you go to the Grand Canyon and you see this majestic scenery, and people are quick to say, that must have been, the water was obviously important in eroding the Grand Canyon. And another place I love to go to is Arches National Park in Utah, and you see this beautiful scenery of all these arches and the beautiful rock formations. And you know that wind and water played an important role in that formation. Bryce Canyon National Park, just some spectacular, very unique scenery. And again, people don't have any trouble believing that a lot of time plus water plus wind can create some beautiful scenery. When you go to the beach, or go to the desert, you see these ripple or wave formations in the sand. Again, people know that water and wind can create those formations. But sometimes we go to these places where you see these pictures.
We will have them in the video as well.
Yes. So you see these pictures on the rock, and you're like, so what caused this? And I've just always liked to, people they get really fascinated by that, and they start seeing different things. And everybody knows that people a long time ago carved this into the wall. And I'm like, what do you mean? With enough time, wind and water could have created that. Like, they look at me like, you're crazy.
Yeah. Why? Why are they? Why would you be crazy to say that?
Yeah, because they see design
Yeah.
in those pictures, and then I like to talk about the time that I went to the beach and I saw a Canadian flag drawn in the sand, and it said Happy Canada Day.
Just wind, water, and time.
Yes, if you have enough waves washing over the beach, or there's a time where Heather was at the beach and she saw this giant heart and it said Doug loves Heather, and it's like, man, what are the chances of that happening? Right before we showed up.
Yeah.
When we see information, we just instinctively can tell the difference between what can be created by time and natural processes versus, like, there's no way that I would believe that just happened.
Yeah.
And it involves information and a message, and you see design in that.
Totally. And I think that's one of the things that I want us to take away. And that's not you looking as like a Christian at these things. As from a science perspective, you're looking at information, and information tells you something. And when you exclude the supernatural from your methods and you see information, your hands are tied to say, well, there must be an intelligent designer communicating something, because, well, we can't bring supernatural to the table.
Right.
And so when we see things like some of the body, the human body, right? There's information in the human body, but we can't talk about that this could possibly be an intelligent designer like God, because, well, that's not on the table.
Right. And I think it's a lot of people, when they go into science, because of how it's presented, that's where their faith is shaken, and people often walk away from their faith because they think science has explained everything. But again, the more I learned about science, the more I was just in awe of, like, that couldn't have just happened. And, I know science isn't everybody's thing, but when you just take a single cell in our body, the amount of information in a single cell, or DNA, the amount of information is just is mind-boggling. So a single cell in your body has over 20 gigabytes worth of information. And how big is
just a single cell?
A single cell.
So it's like this big.
You can't see a single cell without a microscope. And what I think is fascinating is that there has been a lot of effort in the world to find extraterrestrial life.
Yeah, this is good.
Is there life outside in the universe?
We just need
somewhere?
one sign. We just need something to say there's life. Yeah.
So they've got all these giant telescopes, radio telescopes. So they're listening to the noise, and there's background noise out in space. And they're listening to that noise, and they're scanning the universe. And they specifically say, if we can ever detect some sort of coded message where it's not just static, but you can tell that there's more to it. And obviously, we're not going to understand it.
We just need something.
Is it just white noise, or is there something more than that? And they said that will prove, if we can intercept some sort of coded information from space, that will prove there's intelligence out there, not God. They're just that there's another society out there. Aliens. Yeah. But that's a fun game. We should play that sometime. But when we look at a microscope and the amount of information, the amount of coded information that you see, whether it's a strand of DNA and a single cell, if we were to detect a coded message from space, we say aliens, intelligence. We look at a cell in a microscope, we go, wow, look what random chance created.
Exactly. And the amount of information in a single cell is outrageous. Like, if all of our hard drives on our computers had the same data density as a cell's nucleus, you'd be able to store all of the data of the internet 140 times.
Yes, that's exactly.
So,
that's like all the data on YouTube.
There's a lot. TikTok.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, that's outrageous.
And so with our intelligence in designing computers, we've not yet been able to duplicate what happened by an explosion and random chance in a single cell. The data density in a cell is mind-blowing, and my body has 10 trillion cells. That's a lot of information.
And so summarize this in one kind of sentence, in the sense of what we're trying to say is that when it comes to the information in our body, like you would look at I always get this word wrong, hieroglyphics or
Hieroglyphics.
Hieroglyphics.
Yeah, the pictures on the rocks.
The pictures on the rocks. You look at that, you think there's a designer, right? When we look at the information in our body, we should point us to a designer.
Yeah, anytime we see information, you know, whether it's a dictionary, who looks at dictionaries anymore? But you look at a book.
What's a dictionary?
Right. When we see information, we know that there has to be intelligence behind that. And again, the amount of information in the human cell, in the human body, is amazing. It's mind blowing. And then all the chemical processes that must happen to sustain life so we can have this conversation.
Yeah.
You know, everything that's going on in our bodies, again, we are a machine that way exceeds anything that we've been able to design.
But it had to be time.
Plus matter.
Plus matter.
Plus chance. Yes.
It's crazy. Okay, so we're going to move on really quickly. We're probably coming towards the 3/4 of our time together. I want to just quickly talk about evolution, because evolution is one of the things that a lot of our students struggle with. You know, is it real? Did we evolve? What about creation? And so very quickly, can you define what evolution is? And then as well, maybe talk about what are some of the evidences for evolution, and then kind of what we would say about creation in relationship with some of these.
Well, first I want to come right out and say I believe in evolution.
I've heard you say this before. Please clarify.
So, yeah, and some of you might be offended by that. And some of you go, oh, so you really are a scientist. But evolution is quite simple. It's change over time. And that's a fact.
Change over time.
Yes. You look at pictures. There's pictures of you on Instagram from years ago, and you've changed over time. And so have I. So change over time happens.
Yeah.
But then, you know, and that's often then referred to as microevolution. But is evolution the best explanation for the origin and diversity of life? Now, this is often snuck in, and many people miss this when you talk about the origin of life. When we talk about biological evolution, only living things evolve.
Yeah.
And evolution does happen. I mean, you look at dogs, and you look at all the diversity in dogs. Yes, a very cute dog who gets into some things. But dogs have evolved. Now, there's been some human intervention, a lot there. Like if you were just to leave dogs out in the wild, they would de-evolve back to something like a wolf.
Yeah. On a side note, have you ever seen a Pomsky? A Pomsky's like a Pomeranian and a Husky, but like a tiny Husky. Anyway, continue. There's
a lot of dogs that would never survive on their own. There's no evolutionary advantage, and you just put dogs back into the wild to fend for themselves, you'd end up with kind of like a wolf.
Alpha dog.
Yes, but there's a type of evolution that allows for a lot of different types of dogs, but they're still all dogs. In order for evolution to explain the diversity of life, you need to be able to have a transition that goes from, single-celled organisms to humans.
Yeah.
And to have an increase in complexity over time.
So you're going from a dog to a horse.
Right.
Yeah.
And we'll set that aside for just a moment.
Okay.
Even before evolution happens, though, you have an even harder question to explain. Is the origin of life, because evolution cannot explain the origin of life, again, because only living things can evolve.
Exactly.
And so that's
the beginning. When you say the origin of life, where did it come from?
Right. And that is so difficult to answer that many scientists have gone to the point of saying, well, life on Earth was seeded from another planet, or not necessarily a planet, but like from somewhere else in space. Like we can't answer the origin of life, so something brought it here. what is the evidence for that other than you can't explain it with natural explanations?
Yeah.
So that's a whole separate question, the origin of life.
What started it all?
Right. Now, in terms of the diversity of life, again, evolution is a fact. It happens. But does it explain the diversity of life? What is the evidence that you can evolve from fish to amphibians, and from amphibians to reptiles, and from reptiles to mammals?
Yeah. And somewhere there's birds in there too.
Yeah. There is no evidence. The fossil record.
Yeah, let's talk about the fossil record, because the fossil record is something that people often talk about. It's in our textbooks everywhere.
Yes.
But there's a gaping missing piece to the fossil record that doesn't often get talked about or explained. And what is that?
See, because I took biology after having studied geology.
Yeah.
And in my biology class, they're admitting that there were a lot of unanswered questions, but the geologists had proven evolution to be a fact, because the fossil record was a story of continuous change. And Charles Darwin, who really popularized evolution, he said that if his theory was correct, the fossil record should be a story of continuous change. There should be more transitional species than what we recognize today as actual species.
I'm just going to pause us here for a moment, because I feel like we're talking about making some assumptions here. When we refer to the fossil record, we're talking about when you I'm going to butcher this, and this is why Doug's here, but you're talking about the fact that, when you can look at the layers of sedimentary rock and you have fossils, so you've got some fossils on the bottom, some fossils on the top, some fossils in the middle, you should see a natural progression, right? Of, am I saying this right?
Yes.
Of like, if a certain animal came at the bottom, I'll throw a graphic up to describe this as I'm going, but it should go in a continuous motion of, you start with this creature and then you end up with this creature, and you should be able to see the forms of each creature in their transitions as well. But that's not what we see when we look at fossils.
Yeah, I mean, you might not necessarily see them in the right order, because there's a lot of overturning of sediment, et cetera, and the rocks can get overturned. But as we find fossils, and what kid doesn't like to find a rock and go, oh, there's a shell or something.
I've never done that ever, but it would be cool.
So what we should find, though, is not species that we recognize. We should find all the transitions from the single-celled organisms to humans today, and
species we don't have anymore.
Right, exactly. And again, your four basic groups are fish, amphibians, reptiles, and mammals, and that's the evolutionary progression. But where are the transitions between each of those groups? Well, you don't find them.
Never.
And no. And there are scientists who will argue, we found a fossil that we think might be a transition, and then the scientists start attacking each other, like, well, it's really belongs to this, or it's this, and then they start.
It's just missing a leg.
Yeah. And so, as you study geology is full of attempts to explain all the gaps in the fossil record.
I see.
And there are a lot of evolutionists, they're atheists, they're not trying to promote a Christian worldview, but they say the strange thing about the fossil record is that it's guarded against preserving the transitional species. Now, these scientists still believe in evolution. They're committed to a natural explanation for the origin and diversity of life. God's excluded. We've kept him out of science. But as they look at the evidence, they believe it must be so, because here we are.
Yeah.
But the fossil record doesn't show you a continuous
There's missing
story
pieces of the puzzle.
Yeah, not just missing pieces. All we've got is a few pieces, and we've got massive gaps.
Yeah. Doesn't make any sense. And another thing that they will say is this. They'll say, well, what about I'm going to butcher this, the homologous homologous the fact that like all of our bones and stuff kind of looks the same. If you look at like a human hand and a cat foot and a whale fin and a bat wing, they all look the same. And it's clear we all have the same, we all came from the same place. That's what they would say.
Right, and that is one of the proofs of evolution you'll see in textbooks. In a science, biology textbook with a unit on evolution, or a textbook that's just on evolution, will have different chapters that go through the different proofs of evolution. And if you come to this discussion convinced that evolution is true, can you find some evidence? Yes. But that's not how science works. You don't
Yeah.
come to a conclusion, then go looking for your evidence. You look at the evidence to see what's the natural conclusion. And, so how many wheels does your vehicle have?
It has 4.
And does it have doors?
Yeah.
And does it have an engine?
Yeah, it's making some weird noises today, but yeah, it does.
Wow, it sounds a lot like my car. I wonder if your car evolved from mine.
That's a great question.
As you go around Milton,
Yeah.
you may have noticed that some of the houses look alike.
They all look alike.
They all look alike.
Mad at me.
Did they evolve from each other?
Yeah.
No. There was a common designer for a lot of our homes, Madame.
Yeah. Exactly.
And there's a lot of other builders. But so the fact that our bodies bear resemblance to other animals, it doesn't mean that we evolved from each other.
Yeah.
It could be that there is a common designer who found a blueprint that worked well.
Mhm.
And so it again depends on your worldview.
Yeah.
That I would say that's evidence for a common designer, that we have some similarities. It doesn't mean that we had to have a common ancestor.
100%. Especially if we're supposed to get better and better at things. You think we'd still fly because that's a way more effective way of transportation. But I'd like to bring us kind of towards an end. To summarize well, one of the things we want to just encourage our students with is the fact that believing in an intelligent designer is reasonable. And you don't have to check your brain at the door to believe that you have a creator. And there's all sorts of other questions about how old is the earth, and is it, was that over millions of years? What do we do with dinosaurs and all those types of things? But at the end of the day, to believe in a creator is not out to lunch. It's fairly reasonable.
Absolutely. Again, to me, the information is the key, but there's so many, to me, other lines of reasoning that points to a creator. And some of the most intelligent people that I know, some of the leading grant writer and most published scientists at Mississippi State University, did talks on why I am a young Earth creationist. He was committed to science. He was committed to the Bible. Our doctor, one of our best friends in Mississippi, and the chief of staff of the hospital, a young Earth creationist. You absolutely do not need to check your brain at the door to believe in what the Bible says, that in the beginning, God. Yeah. And there's lots of other great questions that we could talk about, and a lot of other questions that we haven't touched on that people might ask, and we can talk about at another time. But the most important thing, regardless of the age, is that in the beginning, God. God created, and the heavens declare the handiwork of God. Everywhere I look, I see design. Yeah. And then there's things I don't understand that happen in the world, but when I look at the world around me, to me, it points to God. And I don't believe in God just because the Bible tells me so. The Bible does tell me so, and I believe the Bible is the Word of God. But the evidence of the world around me says, with the amount of information and design, that there has to be a designer behind that. But to me, the ultimate key is the fact that I don't, while the Bible is such a critical book and answers so many questions, again, to me, the heavens declare the glory of God. And without the Bible, we still know that Jesus is there's no other event in history that's better documented, even outside of the Bible. We know Jesus is a fact of history.
100%.
And God broke into time in his son Jesus. Yeah. And he lived, he died, and he conquered death. And the question, having this discussion about science and the Bible, I think is so important, because for many people, it's an obstacle to coming to faith. Where we spend eternity has nothing to do with how old we believe the universe to be.
100%. And that's actually a good point, because, and I just want to encourage some of you at home as we bring this thing to an end. This conversation is very fruitful. I think we need to have it, but it doesn't bring us anywhere towards salvation.
Right.
And oftentimes when people talk, Jordan, what do you believe about the world? I'm like, you know what? I can have what I believe about this, and, creation, young earth, old earth, all these types of things. But my faith is not in that as much as it is in the fact that there was a man named Jesus, like you said, who walked this earth, who died and rose again. And that's a historic fact that I believe happened.
Mm-hmm.
Paul says if the resurrection didn't happen, all of this is pointless, including our conversations about the beginning. And so the temptation is often to start at the beginning. Well, where did we all come from? But even if you say, okay, there's an intelligent designer, that leaves us with so many gods to now talk about, right?
Right.
And so the fact that Jesus came, broke into time and space, and lived and walked on this earth, died and rose again, changes everything. And that is where I rest my faith. It's
Yes.
not a blind faith. It's in what I believe to be a historic fact.
Yeah, and I think that, people pit science and faith against each other. It's one or the other. We're not called to a blind faith. This is not, people think, well, there's science like gravity, and we know that's true. And then there's Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny and the Tooth Fairy. and that's what faith is. Yeah. And then once you know better, you stop believing. We're not called to a blind, I hope so.
No, we're not jumping into the dark.
Right. Faith to me is using the evidence to take a step into the light.
Yeah.
And there's things that we don't know and questions that we can't answer, but I use what God has provided, and that is a perfectly it's the most reasonable explanation. It takes more faith to believe in evolution as the explanation for the origin and diversity of life, and that we are the product of an accident, and that there is no design in the universe, and that just an explosion happened. Where did all the matter and energy come from that exploded?
Yeah.
It takes more faith to believe that we're the result of an accident, to believe that we're the result of a specific act of creation, and that we have purpose and design in this world.
Totally. Man, that summarized, I think, this whole chat very well. Doug, I'm curious if you'd be open to just praying for our students before we go.
Yes.
And I'll summarize quite after that.
Absolutely. Dear God, I just thank you that you haven't called us to a blind, I hope so. I just thank you that in the beginning, God created, and in that act of creation, that gave us purpose and meaning in life. And I just pray, Lord, for anyone who is searching for that purpose and meaning in life, that you would just reveal yourself to them. And again, I thank you that you aren't calling us to just check our brain at the door. And I just thank you that there's the world around us, the universe around us points to you. I just thank you that you did take on, you became a man, that you walked on this earth, and that you died and paid the price for our sins, and that you conquered death. And the proof that we have that you that we can place our trust in you is that you rose from the dead, and that just proves that you have the power to do that. And I just thank you for doing that for us. And I just pray that if anyone here is wrestling with questions, I'm sure they are. I continue to wrestle with questions. I always have. I just pray that they would see church as a safe place to raise the hard questions, that they would know that there are answers to the questions that they have. And I pray that they would just reach out to us and ask those questions. But again, Lord, I just pray that you would reveal yourself to each one here individually, that you would reveal your purpose on their life, your plan on their life. I just thank you for the chance to have this discussion, and just pray for your blessing on the rest of the night and the days ahead. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thanks, Doug. I hope that you at home were really encouraged. Our hope is that this would be a space, Momentum Youth would be a space where you can ask big questions. And I would love for you guys to, even now, if you have them, shoot some questions in the comments or in the chat, or send it to me on Instagram or my email or my text, whatever you've got. And who knows, maybe we can get Dr. Doug back for round 2 or round 3. Who knows? I've enjoyed this. Did you enjoy this?
Absolutely.
That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I don't know why I ever speak by myself. Again, shout out to Jacob behind the camera today. And guys, we love you and we're for you. And just remember that truth, man. You were made with purpose, with intention, and God loves you. He sees you, and man, you have such tremendous value. And so remember that as you go your separate ways tonight. All right, guys, we'll see you later. Love you.